Hey everyone, it's Carissa at Sprinkled with Glitter. Thanks for joining me today. Today I am creating and I am mass producing. I needed some thank you notes for my birthday, and so I'm going to show you how I put together these brushstroke thank yous and give you some tips and tricks for mass producing along the way. Now for my sentiment, I'm going to be using these Glimmer plates from Spellbinders, and these create the most beautiful foil press sentiments, and they also have coordinating dies to die cut around the sentiment. And today I am using my Crafter's Companion Gemini foil press to do my foiling. And I'm going to turn it on the side, and then I'm going to hit the power button that's on the top, and I'm going to let this heat up on its lowest setting. Now, while that's heating up, I'm going to go ahead and cut some strips of this gold paper crafting foil from Crafter's Companion, and I'm going to cut 20 of those along with 20 strips of Neenah Solar White heavyweight cardstock. You could definitely use the 80-pound if you prefer. I just like a little weight to my cards, and so I often find myself using the 110-pound Neenah Solar White for a lot of my things. Now, once that's heated up, I know it's heated because the light by my heat setting turned green. I'm going to go ahead and add my foil on top of my plates with that kind of more dull side, not the pretty side, up. Then I'm going to add my paper on top of that, and I'm going to cover it with the plate that comes with the foil press, and then I'm going to run that through my die cutting machine. You're going to see that my timer is actually set to 10 seconds, so once I add my plate on top, I set that timer and let it sit for 10 seconds, and then remove it from the base of the foil press and run it through my Gemini Junior. Now I'm going to show you this again because I am mass producing. So once again, the foil with the pretty side down, my cardstock on top of that, and then I will add this plate that comes with the foil press on top, and I'm going to start my timer and let that run down for 10 seconds. Now once the 10 seconds is completed, I'm going to remove this platform from the base, and I'm going to run that through my Gemini Junior just as it is. And what it's going to do is press that foil into the cardstock, and you're going to be left with this beautiful delicate foiled sentiment. It is so beautiful. Now I've done that 20 times. Yes, 20 times. I told you I was mass producing. And you can see I actually went ahead and did some birthday sentiments while I was doing the thank you sentiments. So I have those set aside for future card projects. Now I'm going to do all of my die cutting of these sentiments. When I am mass producing, I do my best to group all of my like tasks together. I feel like this saves me time. So I'm going to go through and take all of these sentiments, and I am going to die cut them using the coordinating dies. So I've just laid these with the blade side down onto my cutting plate, and then I've covered that with the plastic shim, the magnetic shim, and my second cutting plate to create my sandwich. And I ran that through my Gemini Junior, and you're going to see I am left with the most gorgeous foiled sentiment here. I absolutely love these sentiments. Now, I'm also going to give you a peek at the birthday wishes sentiment here. It is absolutely beautiful as well. It has a little more weight to it. It's not quite as delicate in some areas because it's got a lot of loopy areas. So if you're looking for something that's a little bit easier to adhere to cards with foam adhesive, that kind of thicker sentiment makes it easy. But you're going to see I was able to use some foam adhesive to attach my thank you sentiment just fine on these cards. So once I have those popped out, I'm kind of sorting them as I go, and then I will take the coordinating die, line it up around the next group of sentiments, hold it in place with a little ThermoWeb purple tape, run it through my Gemini Junior, and I will continue doing that until I'm done with all 20 of my sentiments, or actually 40 because there's 20 birthday wishes and 20 thank yous, but I'm doing them as groups. Now my next step is going to be to continue die cutting, but I'm going to die cut other elements that I need for my card, and you're going to see that I'm die cutting 2 separate dies at once. This is going to save me a little bit of time because I need 20 each of the frames and 20 each of this Botanical Beauty die from the stamp market. And that frame, by the way, is from the Essentials by Ellen line. Now, I did use a metal shim in my die cutting sandwich because I am using heavyweight cardstock to die cut these. And this is kind of a delicate die, as you can see. And it's a little bit tricky sometimes to die cut this heavier weight cardstock with a really delicate die. So adding that metal shim into my cutting sandwich here, I'm just kind of putting it up against the dies. It's going to add a little more pressure and make that die cut absolutely beautifully. Now I'm going to, as I die cut these, sort them so I have them all sorted out. And once I've completed all of my die cutting, then I'm going to move on to my next step. So you're going to see I have 20 of these Botanical Beauty dies here and 20 of my frames. And these are the smaller frames from this frame set from the Essentials by Ellen line. You can see I have everything sorted and ready to go. And having those items sorted is really going to be helpful when it comes time to assemble my cards. So now I'm going to show you how to stamp the background for this card front. And I am using the Abstract Paint Stroke stamp set from the Essentials by Ellen line and several different colors of ink from the stamp market. And I'm using the same brush stroke over and over again. So I have it mounted in my black Misty here, this is the Hero Arts Misty. It is absolutely beautiful in the shiny black finish. And between the colors, I am cleaning my stamp and drying it off before I move to the next one. So I have that mounted and I'm leaving that brush stroke in the same place and just stamping onto this piece of Neenah Solar White Heavyweight Cardstock. It's cut to 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches. And you're going to see that each time I am going to move this paper up 2 squares in my Misty. And then I'm going to clean my stamp, re-ink with my next color, and then stamp. Now this is how I do it if I were creating one card, but I'm going to show you a little later in the video how I would recommend doing this step if you were creating several cards. So I just wanted to kind of show you how I completed the rest of this card, and then we'll go back to some more mass producing tips. So I've prepped the surface of my card front with a little powder tool, and I've stamped this kind of, I don't know, dotted pattern here over the top using some VersaMark ink. I added some Brutus Monroe gilded embossing powder, and then I'm heat setting that with my heat tool. And that's going to leave me with this really cool gold element on top of all of those colorful brush strokes. And I have to be honest with you, I was really inspired by some cards that I saw by Jeff Lindbergh that kind of inspired this really colorful brush stroke with these gold accents, kind of that theme for these cards. So if you know me very well at all, you know that I'm a fan of Vellum. I just think that it creates just a really dreamy and ethereal look on your cards. And I've always got to find a way to sneak a little bit of that in. And so I'm just taking some 1/2-inch strips of Vellum here and trimming those into a banner in. And I'm going to layer those up with those gorgeous, delicate foiled sentiments that I created earlier. Now, as I mentioned, I am just putting one card together here so you can kind of see the process. But all of these different processes that I'm going through here, like putting on this foam adhesive on the frame and on the sentiment, when I'm mass producing, I do all of that on all of the frames at once. But I wanted to save you a little time in case you just wanted to create one of these cards so that you could just see the process for one single card. But when I am mass producing, I'm going to take and I'm going to put all of the foam adhesive on all of the back of my frames. I'm going to do this assembly line style. So in this case, I would put all of these Botanical Beauty die cuts onto my card front and adhere my frame over the top. And by the way, the frame, the adhesive on the back of the frame is what's holding that delicate die cut in place. I did not put any adhesive on that leafy Botanical Beauty die cut that I have on the background. I just simply sandwiched it behind this frame and it's perfectly secure. Then I added my strip of vellum there with a little bit of foam adhesive. And now finally I am adding my foiled sentiment. Now, if you'll recall, I stamped these onto a card front. Now, you could definitely stamp this directly onto your card base and assemble this on the card base, but I love a little bit of layering. So I am now just taking my dot runner adhesive from Gina K and I'm adding some adhesive to the back of my card front and then adding that to an A2 size card base, which is made from some Neenah Solar White Heavyweight Cardstock. It's cut to 4 1/4 by 11 inches and then scored at 5 1/2 inches to create that card base. And I will finish this card off by adding a little bit of sparkle with some Pretty Pink Posh sparkling clear sequins and a little bit of liquid glue. And that completes my card for today, but I do want to go back and give you a few tips on mass producing these backgrounds. So in the case of mass producing several of these at once, I am actually going to stamp all of the same color at once, so I'm not changing between inks. So you're going to see me start with the blush ink from the Stamp Market and stamp all of my blush brush strokes. Then I'm going to clean my stamp really well before I move on to my next color. And I'm going to move my cardstock up 2 squares, and then I'm going to go through and stamp all of my card fronts with the bubblegum ink from the Stamp Market. So this is the part where I'm not super smart, but in a minute I'm going to figure something out that's going to make my life a whole lot easier. And I think as you go through creating these cards, you just find ways along the way to make your life a little easier. So once I've stamped all of those bubblegum colored brush strokes, I'm going to go ahead and clean my stamp once again. And I'm going to get my next piece of cardstock loaded and ready for the Melon ink from the Stamp Market. This time, I'm going to take and I'm going to start my cardstock in that lower right-hand corner, and I'm going to move it up 4 squares total. And I am going to use this bar magnet from my Misty here, and I'm going to use that as a bumper for me. So I know exactly where I need to place my cardstock in order to stamp the next piece of my puzzle here, or my background. So when it's time to move to the next color, I'm going to move my cardstock up 2 squares, and then I'm going to place my magnet against the edge there, that right hand edge, in order to create a bumper once again. Now you could absolutely do this with the Misty Creative Corners, but I just wanted to show you a way that you could do it with the magnet that you have for your Misty already. Now the next color I'm using here is the Citrine color. This is from the Stamp Market as well. And then I finished off all of these backgrounds with Emerald and Tropic Teal. All of these colors are from the Stamp Market. Now once I have all 20 of my backgrounds created here, I am going to add this gold embossing powder area. And so I'm going to use my Misty once again to do this. A Misty is a great tool for mass producing. It's great for everyday use too if you're not mass producing, but if you just want to make sure that you stamp your sentiments well or whatever, I find so many uses for my Misty. So I've mounted that little kind of dot stamp there into my Misty exactly where I want it to stamp on all of my backgrounds. And I'm prepping the surface of each of these backgrounds with a little bit of powder tool. I'm inking up this stamp with some VersaMark ink, and I'm going to stamp several of these at once. And then I'm going to go and add the embossing powder. So I'm going to do about 5 or 6 of these at a time, stamp them, and then I'll go and add embossing powder to all of the ones that I have stamped in this little group here. Now you're gonna see that I'm not working super fast. I left this in real time so that you can see I'm not hustling for this. This embossing ink stays wet for a little while, so you have a little bit of time. I mean, you don't want to take forever, but you could do 5 or 6 of these, stamp them, and then go and add embossing powder to that little group of 5 or 6 of them, and then heat set all of them at once, and that's not going to be a problem. So once all of the embossing powder is added, I went through and heat embossed that little group, and then I'll stamp my next 5 or 6 backgrounds with that gold pattern, add my embossing powder, and heat set those. And then I went through and just assembled them all at once. And I finished this project in about 3 hours. I created about 21 cards, which I think, considering the design and all the die cutting on this card, that is really efficient. And I used these, like I said, for my birthday thank you cards. I mailed them and they mailed absolutely beautifully. So I'm super happy with the way that these turned out. I love all of those beautiful colors, those brush strokes, and that beautiful delicate gold sentiment like really has my heart. As always, I will have links to the featured products used in this project in the description at YouTube, but head on over to my blog at sprinkledwithglitter.com. I will have that linked below. Over there, you'll find more still shots, more information, and a complete list of supplies. As always, thanks for stopping by and hanging out with me today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notifications here on my YouTube channel so you won't miss any of my paper crafting and card making video tutorials. Once again, thanks so much for stopping by and watching. I hope you are all staying safe and well, and that this video brought a little bright spot in your day. And until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day. Hey, thanks for sticking around to the very end. You know, if you have made it this far, you are one of my favorites. If you want to subscribe to my channel, go ahead and click the button on the left side of the screen. And here's a couple more video tutorials I thought you might enjoy.